Welcome back to Beauty Uncovered by Olaplex. I'm Danielle Frank, and I am really excited because this is our 1-year anniversary of the podcast. And I'm so grateful for all of you. Thank you for all of your messages, for rating our podcast, leaving comments, all of it. And it's been such a great journey. And I'm so appreciative of all of you that have tuned in every week. I am so happy because today we have Christin Brown, who is, if you go on social media, you can find her as Curl Factor. She is one of the foremost experts in curls. And we are going to break it down. We are going to talk about all kinds of things with curls. You know what I did? Okay, so this is what I did. I went on to Google and I just wrote in curly hair. And I looked up to see what were the top questions that people are searching for on Google. So makes sense, right? These are the ones that people want to have answered. So we go through every single one of them. I want you to get your notepad and let's get started. Christin, I think this is a podcast that's a long time coming. I'm excited that you're here today.
I feel the exact same way. Thank you so much for having me on. Finally, we have our moment.
And for our 1-year anniversary, thank you very much.
Let's go. Let's go.
I feel like I should have balloons or something, but you know.
I feel like my hair color is making up for the festivities, I'm sure. So
yeah, it's gorgeous, by the way. Gorgeous.
Thank you. I love your cut.
Thank you. Thank you. One of our advocates, she used to be my mentor in New York. She was actually my teacher. She used to cut my hair, not cut my hair, but she taught me how to cut. And now she's an advocate. And so I saw her not long ago and she's like, oh, I felt like I was going back to a different time. It was so.
You're like, it was everything that I did.
It was everything. It was everything.
Well, it looks fabulous.
Thank you. I actually, it's funny. I had blue hair once. It's not good on me, not good on my skin tone.
Really?
Yeah. I'm just.
But this looks fabulous. This is amazing. This is you. I didn't know the blue you, but this is definitely you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited. I have so many questions and, being that you are the curl guru, you are one of the foremost experts in curl. So what I winded up doing is I Googled a bunch of questions. Actually, I didn't Google questions. I put in curly hair and started seeing all the questions that are probably the most commonly asked when people are searching. So I'm going to test your knowledge.
Ooh.
I don't think it's going to be too hard. I'm going to be honest with you. But so let's get started.
All right.
So I think that the first one is, this is probably a big one. How do I control my frizz?
I think this is like the $1 million question, bar none, every single time, because there's so many factors to take into consideration. I think the word control, first and foremost, just like elicits this ominous thing that we are in control of. Well, when we really think about it, like frizz, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of my colleagues, it's your hair's way of saying, I am thirsty. Please do something about this, So controlling frizz really comes down to a few factors. It comes down to your environment, which is like, where do you live? What's your water situation like, which we'll touch on. And then it also comes down to what products are you using, And then also, I'm going to throw in an added factor is how hot is your water when you're showering? When you're in the shower, it's a big one, And I think those 3 factors will attribute to, your hair either having like super high frizz. Of course, there is, the occasional like, okay, my hair is color treated. I bleach the heck out of my hair. Which, I do, but there's ways that you can make that work for you. So I think the word control should be replaced with how can I understand my frizz? How can I work with, my hair having either high frizz or something to that nature?
I think that makes sense because, I get frizz occasionally. I live in Florida, so we have humidity galore.
There you go. Yep.
But I have my middle child. Funny enough, he was born with straight hair and had straight hair until he went through puberty.
That's
And
it.
now he has like a 3A type hair. It's like corkscrews. They're absolutely adorable. But I find that his frizz is different than mine.
For
And
sure.
a lot of what you're saying is makes sense. I'm sitting there thinking, oh yeah, too hot a shower.
It feels good. I can't blame you. I can't blame you. But I think that's the thing too, is just really like, and I think that's such a good pivot point as well, as realizing hormonally what happens. You know what I mean? Like we have hormones that kick in at multiple times in our lives, puberty being the first. You know, if you're a person who, you know, wants to have kids and to give birth, that's going to definitely play another factor. So hormones are constantly changing the way that our hair, you know, acts and responds.
Weirdly enough, I'm sure I was taught it in beauty school, but I don't recall. Like I was so stunned seeing these curls growing in over time.
Yeah.
I'm like, where on earth did this? I mean, I have people in our family that have curly hair, but it was like, this is not the child I knew.
I did not birth this human. What is happening? Yeah.
And now I have my 12-year-old going, am I going to have curly hair? Yeah.
I love it. We're gonna manifest this.
I manifested. I know, right? Because it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Right on. I love it.
So here is one that I think is a little bit of a loaded question.
Okay.
Because again, speaking as a professional, I know there are different techniques for everything.
Sure.
But the question was, how should professionals cut my curly hair? Which is interesting because I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've had more than one person, like a family member, whatever, that says to me, you know, oh, you know, someone once told me that there's specific ways to cut curly hair.
Sure.
But because, you know, only a couple of the people in my family, and they have coarse, some of them have actually like 4C hair.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Yeah. Oh, believe
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. My nephew and my great niece both have 4C hair, and it's like red.
Oh, I love it.
And yeah, it's a different beast. So they were wondering, you know, are they supposed to be doing something different than what they do for my mom? Yeah.
I think this is the reason why, this is 100% the reason why I'm in the profession that I'm in, and more specifically the niche that I'm in with curly hair. Because for years, I think, and I know that you can remember this in cosmetology school, the section of talking about natural textures and curly hair was like blink of an eye. You know, we blinked and we're like, oh, we're on the next chapter. Okay, we're talking about perms tomorrow. Like it's so rapid. And I think that what we need to first acknowledge is the fact that this information should have been here light years ago when it comes down to the cosmetology industry. This should have been something that we were already educating on and touching on and learning how to cut and learning how to work alongside what is naturally growing out of somebody's head, right? So I feel like, yes, there is definitely a specific way that curly people should have their hair cut. I think the key word right there in your question, Danielle, was professional. And that's what I love the most because, you know, as much as, you know, I mean, I think the way that the world has been, a lot of us have not been able to get out of the house. We've been kind of, you know, at home. And I think the thing is, it's like, yes, we do need to still maintain our ends, maintain a healthy hair regimen. And sometimes that does require you to pick up a shear. Hopefully you're getting it from like a place like, you know, that actually sells shears for hair and not ones that are for construction paper, please.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like, let me stress that.
Yeah.
But I think it also comes down to making that commitment to doing it for yourself and knowing that you deserve to have that professional experience with a person who does curls day in and day out. I can sit here and say, you know, somebody was like, hey, like, I'm getting open heart surgery next week. Can you do it? Sure, I can do it. You probably won't survive. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to make it through the next couple of hours, because I think there's a difference between saying, yes, I can cut your curly hair, but the result is not going to be, because you're not doing it often. It's not a part of your expertise.
I have to say, and it might be an unpopular opinion amongst hairdressers, but I'm going to say it.
Let's say.
When I was in my first job, I was in a really great, swanky, wonderful salon. And they were so wonderful about really teaching us and understanding curl and everything like that. But because my clientele is not primarily people that had curly hair, I have some, I can honestly say I do an adequate job. I don't do a bad job. But I do know if I was doing this day in, day out, really handling that textured hair, I would be freaking amazing.
Absolutely.
And it's frustrating to me because, I want to be freaking amazing at everything, but, but I'm realistic. Right. It does take having your hands in different types of hair texture, and their curls are just, every type of curl is a different pattern, a different texture. They have a life of their own.
Totally. And I think the thing to really remember here too is outside of, and I have tons of colleagues who cut curly hair differently. I have some colleagues who cut curly hair wet. I have some who do it like myself, where they cut it dry and in its curly fashion. I have some who will blow the hair out and cut it dry, but the hair is like straightened and kind of like, pre-stretched. There's a bunch of different ways. The way that I do it is dry.
Me too.
Yeah. But with this being said too, is I think we also need to take the time to acknowledge that having curly hair is a lived experience.
Yes.
Right? You as Danielle can show up and can do 40 curly cuts, a day, a week, a month, whatever it is. And I think it's something to really take into consideration that it's different when it is a part of your essence. It is a part of your personality. It is a part of your identity, And so I think that that's something that we also need to teach when it comes down to the professional standpoint, is also realizing that sometimes we're not going to get it, and that's okay because it's not a part of our identity. But the point to make is that you can get as close as you can by really making it a part of the conversation constantly.
I agree. I think it's so important to have an understanding and learn things. But even I'm realistic, and I understand that there is exposure that even I have on the regular that, I don't always get. So, right. I mean, if anybody knows anything about being an expert at anything, it's repetition. It's doing it over the hours and hours that you are doing it. And the truth is like someone like me, I don't have the hours and hours of experience. Right. I got a lot, but not like, not like that. I won't even pretend, but I think that's a valid. So it's about, for anyone that is looking for a curly haired haircut, it's not always necessarily about that, like the person's technique. It's about finding the person that is specializing in that.
I think that's huge. I think it's big because you're trying to find somebody who has taken the time to hone their craft, to have that level of muscle memory. I feel like at this point, and I almost feel like I should try this, but I'm kind of like nervous about it. But I feel like if I was blindfolded, I would be able to cut somebody's hair and know still what the result is going to be like, because it's almost mapped out in my head. I could see that person once, and then I'm pretty sure, like, I'm seriously going to test this with my wife. Like, oh, send me strength. But I feel like if I was blindfolded, I'd be able to do that because of the repetition, because of the muscle memory, because it is my craft. So yeah, I would definitely say you can go ahead and get a curly cut anywhere. Anyone can cut curly hair, but to level up for yourself is to really seek out the person who has spent hours and higher education investing into the craft, which is what's on your head.
Beautiful. No, I agree 110%.
Yes.
So here's a great question. And I'm taking it as it's what are the essential tools for curly hair? Now, I don't actually see that as product. I actually see that as actual tools or, something to hold your hair in place while you're letting it dry, what all the different things that people can use,
Sure.
things to wrap your hair in when you go to bed. So what would be the things that you would say were essential?
Okay, I think I'm gonna go top 5 here because I feel like I can also go on forever with this one. But I feel like it's so multi-layered. I'm gonna go top 5. So in no particular order, I'm going to say definitely having a silk or a satin pillowcase is key.
It gets so hot though.
I know, but like the payoff though, like the reward is so much greater than those nights where it might be like, okay, this is a lot, but your curls will thank you. So silk or satin pillowcase, even if it's a scarf that you want to like put your hair up in a pineapple style. If you don't know what a pineapple is, for people who are listening or watching, like definitely Google pineapple curly hair and you'll see. I think that's a good one. So silk and or satin pillowcase or scarf. I think tool and tip number 2 is to have a diffuser. That's a big one. I think a lot of us are kind of walking through life air drying all the time, which I'm also can be team air dry. However, there is a big new study that has come out about how air drying may not necessarily be as beneficial to our hair as we once thought. Having your hair wet for an exceptional amount of time for a lot of us curlies is anywhere between 4 to upwards of 8 hours. Can be a lot of stress on the hair and also on the scalp. And so having a diffuser can really do an incredible job of speeding up that time with cutting down the frizz and also enhancing the curls. So if you're going for more volume, if you're going for having that day one hair look amazing and dialed in, a diffuser for sure is a great tool. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Tool number 3. Tool number 3, I would say is, okay, I'm going to say it. Your fingers, your hands.
Love it.
My favorite tool, bar none. Couldn't get anything
No
done
big investment on that one.
like we're here. Because a lot of us walk through life thinking or being taught that we have to use a brush, we have to use a comb to detangle our hair to make it look presentable, in heavy air quotes. And I was just unpacking this with my client earlier, who she's in her, her late 70s, and she brushes her curls every day because that was what was done in the 40s and in the 50s and the 60s. And so today it was really about unpacking this with her culturally. Like, using your fingers is going to give you a much happier curl. You can detangle better. You probably aren't going to get as much breakage as you would have like putting all your muscle strength in on this, even if it's a wide tooth comb. So I'm a heavy believer in using your fingers to handle a lot of what we would put on a tool like a brush or a comb. So that's probably, if I had to rate it, that's my number 1 for sure.
Oh, okay.
That's my number 1 is using your hands. Yeah. And my hands. Let's see. Having a number 4. Okay, again, we're going with tools. I'm really trying to stay out of the product. My brain is like, ooh.
I know. Because
right?
The product is essential, but
It is. I would also say having, let's see. What would be a good tool that I'm not? Because
it is funny when you go on social media and well, our listeners know I have a little bit of a TikTok issue. I might be on there a lot. It's interesting, especially with any of the curly tutorials that you see on there.
Yeah,
I find they're constantly coming up with different tools that you're just like, what? That's a lot.
Mm-hmm. And you're like, do I really need this one?
Do you think maybe with some people with maybe say a looser curl, maybe like some kind of pins or anything?
So yes, I would. I'm going to shamelessly say this right now, and bear with me.
No,
because I have to bear with myself. I think one thing that has made an incredible comeback, especially if we're talking about a looser, wavier curl, is the butterfly clip.
My gosh, yes.
Right? Like,
yes.
I feel like it made a swift return, just like the scrunchie did. The scrunchie came out of nowhere. I feel like I was blindsided by that and being like, wait, where did the scrunchie culture come back so heavily? And I feel like it has a scrunchie now. So I'm going to pair those two together. I'm going to say the double tool would be a satiny scrunchie for putting up, whether it's looser waves or even like really tighter curls, because a lot of these rubber bands that we're using, these like the scrunchy rubber bands that don't have the protective layer on them, do a number on our curls as far as breakage, as far as like pulling out these extra hairs. So I would say the scrunchie that is lined or covered can be really essential. And I would also say the butterfly clip. I've seen some really cute styles of, 2 o'clock rolls around and people are tired of their hair being in their face and they just gather the curls up and it still looks really beautiful and effortless and ethereal. And so I'm going to go ahead and say the return of the blast from the past, the scrunchie and the butterfly clip.
I have to say, I mean, granted, the butterfly clip is probably more my generation. But when I say that, like the butterfly clip, I love that because it really doesn't put a lot of stress on the hair. You're not getting pulling tight and you're not going to have as much breakage.
Right.
It's huge. It's a great one.
It's huge. And you're not putting that, like you said, like that tension on the hairline, which I think a lot of people don't realize is when they're wearing a bun day in and day out, you're over directing where these curls like to live. They live here. They don't live back here. No. So if you're constantly doing that, and that again is going to go back to attributing to more frizz, more disruption in curl patterns. So there's that. I would say my number 5, and I'm glad we made it here because I did it without products. So I'm very proud of myself right now.
Because I had to think about it.
I really had to think. I really had to use my brain. Is a steamer.
Ooh.
A steamer is one of the things that I feel like can totally be overlooked. We can look at it and just say like, I don't need that. But in essence, a steamer does an incredible job of adding hydration back into our hair. Mm-hmm. A lot of us, like my partner, for example, she'll get back in the shower, on day 2, day 3, and we'll let the moisture from the shower reactivate her curls. That does an incredible job of reducing frizz. And a lot of people have, and again, going back to TikTok, I'm sure people have seen these handheld steamers, not the ones you use for your clothes because you will get burned. So please don't do a clothes steamer.
I didn't know that they had handheld ones.
They do that are specifically for curls and for restyling and for adding more moisture. So I would definitely go with tool number 5, hands down, handheld steamer. Boom. We did it, Danielle.
Okay. So do hair dyes ruin curly hair? Kind of touching on that earlier.
We're going to touch on this a lot because me being an Olaplex ambassador, I think that has been my favorite challenge. Is if we're talking about curls specifically, this has been one of the biggest myths, right? Not a myth because it doesn't happen. It's been a myth because people don't think that it's possible to have color treated hair and to have healthy curls. And I feel like I'm a poster child for that because my hair is blue. And so I feel like people do see it being possible, but then they're like, oh, that's probably just your hair, whatever, what have you. So it is possible to have healthy hair and for it to be color treated. It could be pink, it could be blue, it could be just highlights, it could be blonde. But what you need to do is one of 2 things. You need to make sure you're getting it professionally done first and foremost. Okay. No more of this home hair coloring sessions, because I'm telling you guys, the amount of color corrections that I've done over the past 2 years has been exceptional. So, so I think it's that. And I think it's also making sure that, again, going to a person who now not only is just a curl specialist, but they are a colorist as well. They specialize in highlighting or lifting, with curly hair, because our hair reacts completely differently with color, with bleach, with all these things. So to answer that question in a very long-winded way, I don't think anything is possible, right? Mm-hmm. You can experience anything in any kind of way, negative or positive. But I think the deeper question is, can you find that person who, again, specializes in curls so that way you can walk away with having the desired color, the color goal, and you still have a full head of hair?
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, I would just assume like the reason why your hair is blue and is healthy and is gorgeous is because, you're a hairdresser and you have magical fairy nectar.
Duh.
So
Yes, of course.
there's that.
Yeah, sure. Totally.
Well, I mean, I've actually had people, well, you're a hairdresser. So like you
Every
have
time.
that magical fairy nectar.
Every time. And I think that's the thing is like we quickly try to discredit. Well, it's because that's your profession. And it's like, yes, and there's so much more to that. There's so much
Yes.
more care and underlying things that you really need to consider as not only as a colorist, but also as a person who has, who has the adjustments. Like it's not only an in-salon thing, it's making sure that you're going home and you're doing the homework.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know that.
I got 2 more questions.
Let's do this.
2 more. Okay. So the next one is, what temperature and when should I use a hair dryer? Now I'm thinking with a diffuser, I'm assuming, but it is an interesting question.
That's a good question. I thought you were going to say what temperature water, and I was like, let's dive into that. But I'm glad this is a diffuser question or a dryer question. So,
I would assume it's a diffuser. Yeah.
Okay, let's go with that. So the main thing I think to remember, because every blow dryer is different. I have a Dyson, which is an incredible blow dryer. And then I also have another blow dryer that I use. So in comparison, I feel like personally, my Dyson runs a little bit warmer than a normal blow dryer for a few reasons. So I like to keep my temperature at a low heat and a low speed constantly. I feel like a lot of times people are trying to rush the process. And with that, you're going to experience more frizz for sure. So low and slow is my whole thing. On the Dyson, for example, there's only little dials. So it's like heat 1, heat 2, heat 3, fan 1, fan 2, fan 3 as far as speed. So if I was talking about any blow dryer, generally, I would go with the lowest heat setting and the lowest speed option with a diffuser head on it.
What if you had like a portable hood? Like I have one of those I bring to clients. I love those things.
I love those things so much. So in my salon, I have 4 of them that kind of like extend over the head and they're massive. So if it's like long hair, short hair, it's amazing. One thing to remember with the portable ones, the ones that you like kind of transform and they sit out on your counter, is the heating element is super duper close to the top of the head. So what I like to say is you want it to be like a halo, not like a tiara.
Okay.
It's a great way to remember it. We all have seen both. So it's keeping it a halo. So it's hovering above the head. That way you're getting more of this clearance in here and the air kind of distributes better that way. Also, the moment you drop it down to a tiara, you are running into that danger zone of excessive drying. You're going to dry your hair out. You might start to really upset your scalp. You might burn yourself. And also you're going to speed up that drying time a little bit too much. So if you have
unevenly, I would imagine. So you'll have like dry right here and then it's wet here and you're still going.
Exactly. And so for the longest time before I had the dryer of hoods that I do now, I would actually stand behind my client and use the hooded, the half dome dryer. And then I would diffuse with my other one from the bottom up. So I was kind of doing a dual action. If you're doing this at home though, chances are you're probably going to blow out your breaker, you having too much power on one circuit. So I would definitely say take your time and at least get your hair to 80% dry and then you can air dry the rest of the time and that's cool.
I love it. it. Cool. Now the last one when I saw it, I was like, ooh, because I remember my niece had this struggle as well with her daughter.
Okay.
How do I take care of my biracial child's curls? So many moms want to do the right thing for their kids, but as we all know, it is a lot.
Absolutely.
And if you have no experience with that kind of curl, you're in trouble.
100%. 100%. I think this is such a valid, beautiful, and loaded question in a good way, right? I think, for example, I'm a mom, my daughter is 4, my daughter is multi-ethnic. And so she has a lot of different mixes in who she is. It is a benefit that I have curly hair. So that was great, right? Like, I'm like, all right, cool. I know what we're doing. Boom, high five. We're good to go. But that's not the case for everybody. Not everyone is a hairstylist. Not everyone is a curl specialist. Not everyone has the same lived experience as their as their kid, their biracial kid. So I have a couple suggestions and I'll make them quick. I think the main thing is to partner up as a parent, to partner up with a natural texture specialist in your hometown. Wherever you are, connect with that person. Make sure that the child is able to see themselves reflected back into the person that's going to be working with them. I think that's super important. Yeah. And I think it just lets them know, like, hey, like we also have, same curl texture or pattern or skin tone. Those are the things that kids want to see. And they don't know that that's even an option until it's too late and they've never had it. Right. And so I think that's one of my biggest points to make, is to make sure that you can link up with somebody close to you so you can build a relationship as a trio. So that way you all have a game plan, and this child very early on has the support system that they need in order to be empowered by their hair and not shamed by it.
I've seen some really great salons also,
where
they were having classes for these moms to have that time with their daughter or son, and teach them how to really handle their hair from the day to day, and to make sure that they are happy and the kids are not upset. And,
absolutely.
That's hard.
It is.
It's hard enough, like as a parent, like having to deal with homework and, the push and pull with all that. And then have it when it comes to doing your hair, you wanted to have it as great as you can.
Absolutely. I'm doing a lot of classes this year about that, because I felt like that is just one of the biggest questions that I get on a daily basis, is like, what do I use? How do I do this? And are you teaching class? And so if people can find somebody in their area to do that and to join those classes and to see other parents that they're not alone, that's a game changer.
That is so great. I love it. I love it. So those were my questions.
Cool. I think that was
easy.
That was easy. Those were some good questions that I think everyone has. So that was awesome.
Yeah, no. And like I said, these were like the top Google questions for so I'm going to assume that's what people are thinking in their heads. So
there you go. I'm glad we did it.
I'm so glad you came today, Christin. It's always great to bask in your knowledge and learn more. And I know our listeners are probably right now taking notes. So thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much, Danielle, for your time. I appreciate it. We'll do it again soon.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Bye.